All right, if the clerk will call the roll, I believe we have enough for a quorum.
Senator Barfoot. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman. Senator Elliott. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Jones. Senator Kitchens. Senator Livingston. Senator Price. Senator Roberts. Senator Singleton. Senator Smitherman. Senator Wagner. Senator Williams. Senator Shelnut.
All right, we have a quorum present. Just so the members know, we have two public hearings. They're going to be at the end of the calendar. But first, we're going to move, and we're no vote today. We're just going to have the public hearing on both those bills. But we're going to go out of order to start. I'm going to pull up SB 130 by Senator Melson. I understand he has an important engagement he needs to get to. So, Senator Melson, you're on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the information sheet in front of you. And on my bill, it's pretty straightforward, but I was looking for Al Pacino. I hadn't seen this many drug dealers in one place in a long time. So, but that being said, my bill is pretty straightforward. It allows gold and silver to be used as currency. It doesn't require it to be used. It doesn't prohibit somebody from not taking it. It just says that if they're willing to pay with that, and if somebody's willing to take that as legal tender and currency, then they can. There will be no, they'll still be subject to sales tax and things like that, but it's pretty straightforward bill.
I have a motion by Senator Roberts, a second by Senator Williams. If the clerk will call the roll, it gives us a good vote. Hold on, Senator Singleton.
You must have a lot of gold somewhere that you're trying to get rid of.
Yeah, in the drug industry, so.
No, I think you got some.
No, actually I don't, but it just sound policy. Thank you, sir.
All right, if the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Barfoot. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman. Senator Elliott. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Jones. Senator Kitchens. Senator Livingston. Senator Price. Senator Roberts. Senator Singleton. Senator Smitherman.
I vote aye, but I do have some concern, and I'll just tell you with the exchange of what is that? This stuff, the coins. Now we're changing to what? What is it? The counter currency?
It doesn't include Bitcoin at all.
Doesn't include what?
Bitcoin, is that what you're referring to?
No, it's the crypto.
Well, that's
the same thing.
That includes crypto.
No.
Because I'll tell you why. Because there is a serious problem with tracing crypto money. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody agree with me on that. It's hard. You want to launder money, you go through crypto. There's no way to follow up with that. So I'm just concerned that this was addressing that. Okay, thank you. I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Wagner. Senator Williams. Senator Shelnut.
Aye. All right, SB 130 receives a favorable report, 15-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Melson. All right, next up is Senator Carnley, SB 96. Senator Carnley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill was, brought to me for a little bit of a cleanup for salvage titles in Alabama. If you are in an accident, just say you're at the beach in Florida in an accident in your vehicle, the insurance company deems it a total loss, and you want to keep the vehicle for whatever reason and apply for a salvage title in Alabama due to the fact that the accident happened out of state, you cannot do that. Surrounding states are similar as far as allowing the salvage title or the same. And so what we're trying to do is just allow an Alabama citizen that has a title and be able to apply for that salvage title to retain the vehicle. Or if a company brings a vehicle, an insurance auction company brings the vehicle into the state, they're able to apply for a salvage title through the Department of Revenue.
Mr. Chairman, move favor report.
Second.
I have a motion by Senator Elliott, favor report, and a second by Senator Smithman.
I
Senator
do have an
Carnley.
amendment that is out there. I didn't speak on it real quick, but basically it's just, you know, a technical amendment that the Department of Revenue wanted. It's in your packet there. But I need to adopt it. It's just the sentencing there and, you know, the language.
All right, I have a motion by Senator Elliott to adopt the amendment, second by Senator Smithman, using previous role of no objection. So the amendment is adopted. Now, we have a motion by Senator Elliott and a second by Senator Smithman for final passage, using previous role of no objection. Seeing none. SB 96 receives a favorable report. All right, next up, we have SB 97. Senator Kitchens, you're on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is a Department of Insurance bill. It really deals with surplus lines. If you're not familiar, surplus lines is really going to be something mainly around the coast. I mean, it's a specialty type of insurance that we have. And really, this is just brought about to make sure that we are in conformance with the reciprocity laws, some of the national standards. So it's to make sure that we're in compliance with that.
Move for favorable.
I have a favorable by Senator Price and a second by Senator Williams. Using previous role with no objection. Yes, sir. We will add you to the roll, Senator Barfoot. SB 96 using previous role of no objection. Seeing none, SB 97 receives a favorable report. All right, Senator Carnley, we're going to move down to SB 154. And you see HB 230s by Shedd. It's the same bill that you are carrying, but it's the House version.
Yep. So I'm not, you know, Mr. Shedd was very successful, and he passed the bill and dropped the mic and walked off. So I mean, you know, I don't know if I want to follow that act. So. But, you know, what this does is it just gives some clarity. There was a national suit that National Association of Realtors agreed to a settlement, said that realtors would enter into a buyer's agreement early in the process. In order to show a house or talk about a house, they would have to enter into that. Well, in Alabama, our current law states that you only do that whenever you enter into like a fiduciary agreement. You want to show a house. I mean, you want to put in an offer on a house, or you want to list a home for sale. So this is just clarifying for Alabama to make sure that, you know, that real estate agents have access to clear language. So there's no confusion.
I got a favor by Senator Livingston and a second by Senator Price, but Senator Smithman, you got a question?
Can you be a little more clearer to me about
Sure.
what is what they can't do now and what is going to allow them to do that?
So, you know, and we've got a real estate agent right there. I could probably let him speak to it. And you want to take it?
I mean, it's basically a form that we have to sign. We have to get signed.
So there are current disclosures that they have to enter into prior to even showing a house. I mean, you know, what they make, kind of what the agreements are in place. But the buyer's agreement is a contractual agreement saying, I'm your agent, you're my client. Well, if I am required for you to enter into that agreement and you don't even know if you like me yet, we hadn't looked at a home, the National Association of Realtors settlement says I've got to enter into that agreement with you. Then you're contractually obligated to deal with me in that buyer's process, and we hadn't looked at a home. We hadn't talked about even selling your home. This says that, you know, once you agree that, hey, I want Josh to be my agent, I want to put in an offer on this home, that's when the buyer's agreement is required. But any time before that, you don't have to do that, because at that point, you don't know if you want to deal with that person. So there are disclosures out there regarding compensation and other issues for real estate agents that they're required to provide up front. But it's not a binding agreement or a contract that they have to sign, you know, before they get into the agreement.
Senator Smith, you can imagine the first time you meet a realtor and they're having to stick a form in front of you that says, hey, we need to be under contract. That's a little uncomfortable situation. So there's, you know, you don't want to have to do that until you're actually going to make an offer on a house.
I'm ready to vote.
All right, using previous role, if no objection. Seeing none, SB 154 receives a favorable report. All right, moving to HB 230, which is the exact same bill. We got a motion by Senator Jones and a second by Senator Smitherman. Using previous role on HB 230, if no objection, seeing none, HB 230 receives a favorable report. All right, now, moving right along, while I think the majority of the people are here today. We're going to have our first public hearing, SB 93, Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issues between small pharmacies and pharmacy benefit managers, known as PBMs, is one of the most important issues facing our small business community right now. Our independent pharmacies across the state are closing at an alarming rate, and it's because they are not being fairly compensated for the drugs that they provide. In many cases, they are compensated less than the cost that they pay for those drugs. So what this bill does is four simple things. It says that they are reimbursed the cost of the drug plus the average acquisition cost. So that is the total that would be paid. And it also says in this bill that that cost cannot be passed on to the consumer. There's a lot of fear-mongering that's been going on saying that everybody's prices are going to go up. First of all, when you've got a middleman, basically that's what these PBMs are, that are raking in billions of dollars, billions with a B, they can afford to pay a little bit to help, you know, above the actual cost of the drug to keep the doors open and the lights on for these pharmacies. No one in here in the business world could sell something for the same price they bought it at, much less sell it for less than they bought it at. You got a sheet in front of you. You might want to take a look at it here. And this explains how actually costs are going to go down for the consumer. And we've seen that in other places around the Southeast. Many of these pharmacies own their own PBM. And you can see at the bottom here, this table, what the acquisition cost is. You know, you can look at a drug and see the markup on the right-hand side. In some cases, 2,000, 3,000% that the markup is. This would cap, basically put a ceiling on the reimbursement at the cost of the drug plus the average acquisition cost in Alabama, which currently is $10.64. That may go up and that may go down. But in any case, consumers are going to be the ones that benefit from this legislation, and the pharmacies are going to be able to stay open and serve them. You know, imagine a world where you only could go to a chain pharmacy and not deal with the mom and pop folks that you've grown to know over the years. So reimbursement, fair cost reimbursement is a key component of this bill. There's also a provision in here that prevents gag clauses. This is a huge First Amendment issue. These pharmacies are not allowed in many cases to tell their patients if there's a cheaper option or to tell them how the pharmacy itself might lose money if they fill the prescription. They are forbidden from doing that. They can be punished for doing that. This bill fixes that and allows them to talk freely with their customers and say, hey, we'd love to fill this, but we're going to lose $100 if we fill this prescription. You know, why don't you contact your provider because this PBM is causing these issues. The last thing is, and the four major things, there are a few other things in there, but the four major things, the last one is the right of refusal. So they can refuse to fill any prescription that puts them underwater. So those are the major components that make up the bill. I will say, you know, there are two different bills here. My response to that would be, I want the strongest bill that has a chance of passing both houses and getting to the governor. That's what I'm all about. I want to pass the strongest bill that can get through the legislative process. And that's what I think we have here. So happy to take any questions, and I know we got some folks who want to speak on the legislation.
First, have Senator Smitherman. You had a question?
If you'd like to take up, if somebody has signed, I'll yield until they get through and then make my statement or comments, you know, or whatever like that. If nobody's to sign up, then I'll
There's going to be plenty sign up.
Well, well, in that case, let me come back just quickly and say this. I want to say this to whoever's listening, and especially the sponsor, is that one of the concerns that I have with these two bills is that the bill we're on now, and this is just my interpretation right now, I stand to be corrected, but it deals with a broad aspect of businesses, these people, from pharmacies to whatever else that they deal with. The 99 deals just with those pharmacists. And I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not sorry because I feel this way. We cannot put these small pharmacies out of business. It's just that simple, you know. And I'm not, you know, I'm not in favor of that, putting them out of business. I'm not in favor of them being neglected because, you know, it's hard to serve more than one master. And if you got just 93's got them serving everybody in the world plus pharmacists, I just can't see how that is not going to be some kind of conflict as it relates to these small pharmacists. So I just kind of, I can be corrected, but as I sit here now, you know, I personally think 99, having read these, is the better of the two as it relates to the small pharmacists. So I do have some problems right now with 93. And the one thing that I hope to be able to not to let happen, and that is for these small pharmacists to be in a bad way. And I know it sounds strange coming from somebody like me, because I'm in an urban area and I got the biggest ones you can think of. But I'm also from a rural area, and I know the importance of that small pharmacist there. Without them, those people don't have anything to go to and to do. So I just wanted to share that with you.
One question.
Thank you, Senator Smitherman. And I think we've all heard from our small pharmacists, and we all feel the need to help them out. And hopefully we're going to do something and have a compromise between these two bills eventually, or move one of them. But Senator Coleman, you were the next one that I saw.
Thank you. And it's just a process question. Asking the chairman what your intent is today on the public hearing. I know folks have come in from all over to speak. And I also know we have other meetings that are going to start in about an hour. And I've just seen it before where, not you, Ms. Chairman, I've seen another chairman of mine that will have a time, yes, right, you, that will have a time in, you know, that we're kind of, that this is a time that I want to finish this, and then there'll be a lot of other people that can't speak. So I just wanted to kind of understand the process so all of these people that drove in from around the state have the ability to actually talk to us today, because it's directly impact them. And Senator Smitherman, although I'm in the urban area too, I have two Brooklear Mills that are family pharmacies, and I know they're represented here today as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to know the process.
Yeah, well, the process, unfortunately, we can't have, you see the crowd out there. Everybody can speak. We don't have that time, but everybody is welcome to come by our offices and speak to us. And I'm sure we've had many visits already, and I'm sure we're going to have many more. But today we're going to have at least 12 speakers. So, you know, 6 on each bill, 3 from each side on each bill. So,
Yes.
So next I had Senator Singleton.
Yeah, it'll be real brief. Mr. Jones, on your bill, you said those 4 things that you had that was pertinent to this bill, and the last one I think you spoke to was the right to first refusal for the pharmacist not to fill. How does that really benefit the pharmacist in a small rural area? Because if he's not filling prescriptions, then he goes out of business.
That's right. Well, we do have the reimbursement piece in here, but this is just kind of a backstop. So they should be reimbursed the acquisition costs plus the dispensing fee. I said that wrong earlier. It's actual acquisition cost plus a dispensing fee.
Okay.
It's what they'll be reimbursed. But it also puts the right to refuse in there if for some reason, you know, unbeknownst to us, something happens that they are underwater.
I got you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Singleton. Senator Elliott, do you have a question?
Comment? I do, Mr. Chairman, and I wanted to ask this question really for some speakers before they came up, and maybe they can help me understand. My degrees are not in mathematics or economics, but I got to, and I appreciate what we're doing, and I love our pharmacists, and, you know, there's some great components of this bill. but y'all are going to have to explain to me how adding cost into this system is not going to add cost to consumers. You cannot pay more for something and increase cost and it not end up costing more. Can't do it. So I'm eager to hear how that's going to work.
Somebody can explain that better than me, but I'll just say, when these pharmacies own their own PBMs, right, then they're marking it up like crazy. You can see the percentages here. So that is just one way that it will save cost. And perhaps some folks that are speaking today can give you some case studies from our surrounding states of where this has happened and costs have actually gone down.
Senator Hatcher. No, we're not voting today on either one of them. Any other senators have questions? All right, seeing no questions, we'll start the public hearing. Clerk, call the first speaker.
Bobby Giles.
Welcome, Mr. Bobby Giles. He's a proponent.
Good morning. Thank you for taking time to listen. I'm Bobby Giles with the Alabama Pharmacy Association. Most of you know me already. I'm going to keep this as simple as I can. A pharmacy cannot sell a medication at or below cost and continue to serve patients. That is as simple as it gets. This is not complicated math, but the PBMs want it to be. The reimbursement in Senate Bill 93 is very clear and very transparent. It is the average cost of the drug in Alabama and the average cost to dispense that drug in Alabama. Senator Elliott, no more, no less. This pricing model caps what a pharmacy can make on a prescription. It caps it. It also caps what a PBM can pay themselves on the pharmacies that they own. So there's your cost savings, because a lot of times right now, a lot of the PBMs are paying themselves more than they're paying everyone else on the pharmacies they own. This bill does not add to the cost of a prescription. Anything paying more than it should comes down. Anything paying less than it should comes up. It levelizes. It does not add. It only defines how a prescription must be paid at a pharmacy by a PBM. If the pharmacy is not paid the cost of dispensing, access to care will continue to be a problem. The pharmacy may close. The pharmacy may no longer choose to accept your insurance. The pharmacy may not stock your medication. Regardless, you will not have access to care at your local pharmacy.
1 minute left.
What is the cost to health care if the prescription's not filled? You want to talk about raising health care costs. What if it's not filled? Pharmacists are the most accessible health care provider and often the only health care provider in these small communities and in the urban areas. Do not let these out-of-state, billion-dollar PBMs close the pharmacy in your community. Let pharmacists tell the truth, help their patients get better, and get paid the cost of dispensing for the meds that are covered by your insurance. We have one of two choices. Either we find a way to be paid for the cost of the drugs we're dispensing, or we say no. Let's say yes to access, yes to filling your prescription, and we can do this with Senate Bill 93. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. Next speaker.
Anna Nugent. I'm sorry, she's a proponent.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. Today I stand before you as a real person, a pharmacist in representation and support of thousands of independent pharmacists in our state. Think about your hometown. You can see a face of a pharmacist that you've entrusted your care with. I represent them. We're in a crisis and our time is running out, and it's real. I'm a second-generation pharmacist We've been in business for almost 60 years with 37 employees and 13,000 active patients. It's been a great honor to serve alongside my father for the past 22 years. He's like a superstar in our area. Everyone knows him and wants a chance to talk to him. We can't go anywhere. I sit comfortably and proudly in his shadow, mostly known as Dale's daughter. My daughter's pursuing a pharmacy degree in Auburn, a third-generation pharmacist to be. That should bring me great joy, but instead I have an intense fear for her future. In this room, I'm surrounded by friends and respected pharmacists. We are all united in our passion for independent pharmacy. Our patients have spoken, and I hope you've heard them, and I hope you listen. I see pharmacists struggling to pay their employees, sacrificing their own financial well-being. Many will close their door if help isn't granted this legislative session. Our fate's in your hands. We are givers. You see our pharmacy names on fences, gyms, shirts, on banners supporting our communities. We fill meds after hours, weekends, on holidays. We take care of hospice patients in the middle of the night and help transition late or weekend hospital or emergency discharges when no one else can. We've continued to give even when much has been taken from us. There is nothing left to take. We have to have help now. And what is everyone going to do if we're gone? The losses are daunting. You see this stack of papers here with me. It represents 1 year of losses, over 1,000 pages from front to back, line by line of prescriptions paid below our acquisition cost. We gave away over 40,000 prescriptions last year.
1 minute left.
No business can survive that way. Currently, I'm more focused on, Medicare or medication access management than when I should be focusing on medication therapy management, which is my job. I'm helping patients get their medicine wherever they need to get it. I'm helping them get that access. Chains are turning them away. Mail order won't complete all their orders. The total cost or profit in a Snickers bar shouldn't be more than 90 days of a diabetic or heart medication. Daily, we coordinate care with prescribers and obtain authorizations. As consumers, we pay for a product and service fee for our oil changes, our appliance repairs, and many other necessities, so why not for your health services? I filled an after-hours urgent prescription last week for a seizure patient insured by the state employee benefit. That fill kept a patient out of the hospital, and yet my time, expertise, and medication was valued at 79 cents. Pharmacists have always been trusted healthcare professionals. We're the little guys, but we do a great work.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Nugent, I have a question for you. So you're speaking on SB 93. Just for my question, are you for both bills, only for this one? Just because there is some confusion. I receive emails from many local pharmacists, and they'll email me, hey, I'm for this one, and then they come back and say, no, it's the other one I'm for. So I've just wanted to ask you that.
I can't be an expert in legislation. But I am an expert in community pharmacy, and I am in support of your help in community pharmacy in whatever measure that is. Of course, I want the stricter measures in place. I want what's going to help us the most, but I want what you're going to pass. That's what I want.
Thank you.
Next for proponent is Greg Raybold.
Welcome, Mr. Rabel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope time didn't start when I started walking up here. Oh, my God. I don't know. Greg Rybold here on behalf of American Pharmacy Cooperative. And, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you, and I want to thank this committee, and I want to thank Senator Jones in particular for bringing this legislation. Tough to follow Anna, and just grateful for her and the courage she had to be here to talk about this issue today, and grateful for all the pharmacists that are here today to talk and to support, irregardless of the bills. They're here because these pharmacists are fighting for their lives, literally for their existence, and for them to be able to continue to care for their patients. Not a surprise here. Pharmacists have been ringing the alarm for years. I've said this a lot. In my office at home, I got a VHS cassette that says PBM's 101 that came from community pharmacy. So y'all have heard the stories, the experiences, what they labor under. But here's what's different. Pharmacists are behind the counter and they see their patients getting taken advantage of. They see their losses. But it's often anecdotal, but we now have data to tell the tale. Data that tells a very different story than what the PBMs are telling. And I'd like to point your attention to this page we have here, because this looks at data from a real pharmacy. This is a pharmacy, Lake Pharmacy in Slapout, Alabama, and it closed its doors this month. And this is the data. You've got an independent pharmacy versus the mail order payments to the PBM-owned pharmacy. And what we see is these are the 15 most prescribed drugs according to federal data. These are drugs that are being filled hundreds and hundreds of times a week by every pharmacist here. And what we see is, the old adage of, hey, the PBM mail order pharmacy is saving money. It's not, right? These aren't cherry picked. 12 of the 15 most prescribed drugs, the PBM is shipping out of state and they're paying themselves more. And it gets better because they've designed a plan.
1 minute left.
They've designed a plan here where literally the independent pharmacy can only fill this prescription 2 times. Then it gets shipped to the mandatory mail order pharmacy where the patient then has to get it over and over and over at the more expensive price. And if you look at the chart below, these are medications that treat the sickest patients, cancer patients, HIV, multiple sclerosis, arthritis. And what we're finding is the PBM is forcing the patient to their out-of-state mail order pharmacy, and they're charging thousands and thousands of dollars above the cost, thousands to employers, thousands to governmental entities, and thousands of dollars to patients. And SB 93 stops that. It caps the ingredient cost. It prohibits PBMs from doing those massive markups. And so grateful for this committee, grateful again for Senator Jones' leadership, and grateful for every independent pharmacist here who's here to speak on either one of these bills because they're fighting to keep their doors open. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, just in time. That was good timing.
Thank you.
I don't see any questions. Next speaker, please.
Robin Stone for an opponent.
Welcome, Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Robin Stone, the director of the Alliance of Alabama Healthcare Consumers, an organization that represents the perspective of private and public employers that provide health care benefits in the state of Alabama. Employers have standing in this issue. Over half of Alabama's population, roughly 2.75 million people, get their benefits at their workplace. Our common goal is to provide high quality, accessible, affordable, and sustainable health care benefits. These two sponsors of these bills are sincere, very well intentioned, and appreciate their concern. However, we have differences of opinion on this bill, and I hope to address a couple of those just from the employer's perspective. These two bills create staggering costs that will affect every employer in Alabama that provides health care benefit plans. The greatest common concern of both bills is the enormous cost of a new $10.64 dispensing fee that will be applied to every prescription filled in Alabama. These two fees apply to employer-provided health care insurance benefits, public or private. That fee would be paid to pharmacy owners by pharmacy benefit managers that would then pass on those fees to Alabama employers, insurers, and consumers. These new fees will go directly to all pharmacy owners, including independent pharmacies and large chains. So small independent pharmacies, many of which are here today, plus the CVS, they all get the dispensing fee. A cost analysis by the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association, which is the national organization that represents PBM, estimated this week that the new fees and reimbursement provisions will add $347 million in new prescription drug spending in Alabama in the first year alone. That's $3.4 billion in 10 years. These bills do not prohibit costs from being passed down to employers. These dispensing fees will be passed down immediately
1 minute left.
to PBMs. Neither of these bills addresses the real cause of health care concerns, which is the skyrocketing cost of drugs. The legislation includes small business and specifically targets large businesses that have a risk exemption right now. I'm talking about the large businesses that we've worked very, very hard to recruit. This legislation adds staggering costs to Alabama's health care delivery system that will be paid for by Alabama's public and private employers and the employees that receive their benefits at work. We encourage you to consider our concerns and work with us. Let's find some other paths to sustain vital pharmaceutical coverages. I'll be happy to answer any questions about our organization or about the issue if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Senator Elliott, do you have a question or comment?
I do. Mr. Stone, thanks for being here. So the last speaker told us that that PBM, well, it says it right here, I'll read it. PBM-owned mail-order pharmacy is more expensive than independent pharmacy. And they've got this chart here that shows by really thousands of percent that the PBM is more expensive. I'm confused again. Can you help me with that?
I can't speak specifically to what the chart says because I can't see it.
That's okay. I'll show it to you.
But as I recall, I believe that mail order pharmacy, I know it's of great concern to community pharmacists, but my understanding is mail order remains a very small portion of that service market. Most people go to their local pharmacy.
Right.
There are people who like to get their drugs through the mail. It's small, but I can't speak specifically. Senator, I'm sorry because I haven't seen the document.
No, that's okay. Mr. Chairman, my concern just continues to be cost. I want to help every pharmacist in the room. I want them all to be happy. I want them all to make money. They can't sell it at a loss. But I keep going back to where's the cost land on this?
Thank you, Senator Elliott. Senator Coleman, you have a question, comment?
Thank you. It is just, I want to, Mr. Stone, is there, well, can you provide us the data? Because we have some data on the other side, and you talked about the $10.64 fee. I believe that was the number, and then the 3 point whatever billion over 10 years. I would like to see that data. I'm data driven.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you could share that with us, that would be helpful as well.
Be happy to. I passed it out yesterday. It's probably somewhere in your stack of materials, but there's some information. But I'll be glad to get it back to your office again today.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Roberts, did you have a comment, question?
Ms. Stone, I agree. Thank you for being here. We've dealt with this issue for at least the last 5 years. I believe the sponsors of the bill are looking for a solution because we continue to hear from our pharmacists across the state. I'll be happy to give you a copy where they show specific data. What's the solution here? We need a solution because I believe our independent pharmacies, in particular, are the tip of the spear for healthcare delivery throughout the state, and they're getting crushed. What do you think a solution is here?
Well, solutions follow problems. There is no doubt, and I think everybody in this room agrees, certainly I do, and I know the members of the committee do, that community pharmacists and pharmacists in general are a vital part of Alabama's healthcare delivery system. No question about it. We all understand that. So the question is, do we have a pharmaceutical services access problem in the state of Alabama? Alabama is very fortunate. We have one of the highest levels of community pharmacists in the nation, even though we have a much smaller population. Do we have enough pharmacies? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think the legislature does either, but we need to understand what's the capacity that we have here. One of the things about this piece of legislation that very much concerns me is we're paying pharmacy owners, and these bills go to pharmacy owners, not necessarily pharmacists, that we're paying more money, and there's nothing in this legislation that guarantees expanded services into rural or urban areas that are underserved. Nothing in the bill says that if we pay you $10.64, that we're going to use that money to provide more services or improve healthcare outcomes in the state of Alabama. Nothing speaks to any of that. That's of concern to me. Usually in businesses, when you pay people more money to do something, you expect additional services. I don't hear any talk about that. So I understand your concern. In my time in the legislature, there is almost an annual ask on pharmaceutical services. We need to address this issue. We need to have real data that's commonly understood by the legislature so that you can make informed decisions. Not just listen to me, not just listen to pharmacists, in my judgment. That's not an answer to your question, but I think that the set of data you have and trying to assess what the problems and the needs are, the real needs. I'm very fortunate. I live and I've got 3 pharmacies very close to where I live. I know people in urban areas don't have that, Senator Singley. But, those problems with urban and suburban areas both, particularly out in the country, they're the same problem that you have with financial and with restaurants and things like that. We need to figure out how to go answer that problem for that care in those areas.
All right, see no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Next speaker.
Next up, opponent is Caroline Franklin.
Welcome, Ms. Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. I'm Caroline Franklin, and I'm here on behalf of over 1 million working Alabamians in the greater business community in our state. These bills impose a $10.64 fee on every prescription filled, and we've heard from many employers across the state who are deeply concerned about the harm that this will cause businesses and workers. Proponents of the bills argue that PBMs will absorb the fee. However, our 3,500 members and Senator Elliott know one fundamental truth. When costs increase, they are ultimately passed down the chain. Employers will be forced to shoulder these additional costs, which will inevitably be reflected in higher premiums for businesses and consumers alike. Alabama has worked tirelessly over the years to create one of the most business-friendly environments in the nation. We've collaborated to attract and retain businesses and industries, making Alabama a very appealing place to do business. However, bills like SB 93 and SB 99 will directly undermine the progress that we've made. Instead of continuing to move toward a more affordable environment for employers, these bills will reverse that progress, hurting businesses and their employees. In 2019, about 40.4 million commercial prescriptions were filled in Alabama, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. A $10.64 fee on 40.4 million prescriptions would cost consumers an additional $430 million a year. Now, we know that that data is a little dated, but that's the most up-to-date information that we have on hand. So rather than addressing the underlying issues of high prescription drug costs, these bills will place unnecessary financial burdens on employers, especially small businesses, and will make it harder for them to provide affordable health benefits. SB 93 and SB 99 pose significant setbacks to our ongoing efforts to foster economic growth and development across
1 minute
our state.
left.
We recognize that there's a problem, but shifting the burden from the pharmacy to businesses and employers is not the solution. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. Seeing no questions, next speaker.
I believe it's Matt Berkeley for opponent.
You got it right the second time.
Barkley, Mr.
Barkley.
Oh, Barkley.
You got it. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Barkley.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Barkley, and I'm the Chief HR Officer for Great Southern Wood, headquartered in Abbeville, Alabama. Great Southern Wood Preserving has 1,900 team members across 13 states and 21 locations. Here in Alabama, we have 900 team members, which represent about 2,500 Alabamians stretching from Abbeville to Mobile to Muscle Shoals. Great Southern manages a self-funded health plan, and we work very hard to keep it affordable for our team members. SB 93 does nothing to solve the greater problem with rising pharmacy costs. SB 93 strikes the ERISA provisions in our current law, which have effectively shielded self-funded multi-state plans like ours from many of the proposed onerous provisions of the PBM law. Removing those restrictions will severely impact our ability to provide one common affordable program to team members across 13 states. SB 93 also impacts our plan design as it prohibits us from promoting a pharmacy over one pharmacy over another. We're actually friends of the local pharmacy. I think you could ask any of these guys. We actually provide our team members a higher or lower copay and better costs if they utilize a local pharmacy like Mike's in Abbeville or Dalton Pharmacy in Muscle Shoals. SB 93 also contains contradictory language that makes it difficult for plan providers to interpret. In one paragraph, it states the PBM cannot refer an individual to a mail order pharmacy, yet 5 lines below, it states that we can notify an individual that a less costly option is available. Our interpretation of this confusing language is the legislation does not want us to require our team members to use mail order or specialty pharmacies. We utilize a mail import model that helps us acquire specialty pharmacy meds at 50% lower than available locally by shipping them directly to the team members. I'm a prime example. I get my drugs delivered to my house
1 minute
literally at 60% less than I can buy them locally. And the plan doesn't experience that cost. If we fill those in-house, we take all those scripts and we start filling them it's going to cost us $1.3 million in pharmacy savings. That's what we saw last year. So, yes, we filled 12,900 scripts last year at a cost of a little over $1 million, and we expect about a 13% increase in our cost model. It hurts my team members because guess what? Somebody's got to pay for it. It's going to come back through the plan, and it's going to increase our base cost. We are a self-funded plan. My team members are profit sharing too. So when it hurts them and it hurts our plan, it hurts what they put in their pocket. So I'm just trying to be real with you. That's what we expect to see.
Thank you, Mr. Barkley. All right, and that's all our speakers, and they did a wonderful job. Moving on to the next bill, SB 99, Senator Stutz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'd like to give just a few introductory remarks, Mr. Chairman, if possible, and then after the speakers, I want to give a very short little summary at the end, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. As y'all have all heard, this issue has been brewing for several years, and Senator Beasley and Senator Butler, that are both pharmacists, have addressed this issue for several years. They're both co-sponsors of my bill, and we're standing on their shoulders on what they've done for the last several years. I've only been involved for a few months in this process. As most of you know, I've practiced medicine in Alabama for 32 years and have written thousands of prescriptions, but have never really looked at how they were priced, never really gotten in the weeds of how the consumer actually pays for them or how their insurance pays for them or what profit the pharmacy may or may not make. But over the last year, over 100 independent pharmacists in the state have been involved in drafting this bill. And as with any group, about 5 people kind of stepped to the forefront and started working diligently on the bill for months. Josh Harden, Joe Jones, B.J. Jones, Craig Moore, and Trent McLemore, who you're going to hear from in just a minute, have spent hours and hours of their time working on this bill. And not a single one of them was paid. Not a single lobbyist has been involved in drafting this bill. It's been independent pharmacists and their input because they know the business and they're involved in it. They live it every day, just like some of the people that spoke about it. The Department of Insurance for the state of Alabama has had input in this bill. We met with them last week, and I'll tell you, I was very impressed with Commissioner Mark Fowler and his knowledge of the issue and his staff's knowledge of the issue. They had been very proactive, had actually, before even we met with them, they had talked to insurance commissions in other states that have similar bills to this, and they were just so knowledgeable about the issue. I want to make very clear, they are not endorsing either bill, but I just wanted to say that how impressed I was that that they were so knowledgeable about the issue when we first went to talk to them, and they don't endorse specific legislation. But I want to give you just a couple of quick stats, and then we'll get to the speakers. The 3 largest PBMs in the nation are CVS, Caremark, United Health, Optum Rx, and Cigna Express Scripts. In 2012, these 3 filled less than half of the prescriptions in the United States. Last year, they filled over 80% of the prescriptions in the United States. As a standalone company, any of these 3 would be in the top 40 companies in the United States as far as revenue. And the largest, Caremark, is larger than Ford Motor Company or Home Depot in revenue. So I'm telling you that to understand, for you to understand what a huge share of the market and the billions of dollars that we're talking about. with that, if there's no questions about any of this part of it, I'll yield to have the speakers, Mr. Chairman, and then I want to come back again at the end and give a very brief summary.
All right.
Any questions for
Thank you,
me?
Senator Stutz. I don't see any questions. No questions, so we'll start with the speakers, and you can come back after. Thank you, Senator Stutz.
Our first is a proponent, Josh Harden.
Welcome, Mr. Harden.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Josh Harden. I'm an owner of Mills Pharmacy. Last year, we were forced to close one of our Birmingham locations because of PBM practices. Independent pharmacy faces extinction in this state because PBMs own their own pharmacies. They operate in this state. They steer their own patients to them. They set pricing for both those pharmacies and their independent competitors with the aim of driving all those competitors out and achieving a monopoly. They also keep a spread on every claim that an independent pharmacy processes. So they're profiting off of that independent pharmacist labor. Two bills are presented today. SB 93 was drafted by a paid association, and it contains some good language, but it lacks some enforceability and it leaves loopholes that undermine the language. SB 99 was drafted by independent pharmacists across the state, the people that are fighting this every day. We looked at other states like Tennessee and West Virginia that have effective legislation, and we attempted to address the ways that the PBMs have attempted to skirt those laws. In short, SB 99 has teeth, and it will keep us from asking you for a solution every legislative session. To be clear, the association behind 93 offered to add some of the language from 99, but the addition would not fully address our concerns, and the trust with our association is dwindling quickly since it came to our attention that the association generates significant revenue via a business relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, who consistently opposes us on this type of legislation. We would rather trust lawmakers like you to correct this issue, to keep the pharmacist in business so that quality health care remains accessible. SB 93 will not sufficiently change the legal framework that is allowing the PBM's practices. The Alabama Alliance of Healthcare Consumers is arguing that PBM reform will raise costs. However, CVS Pharmacy, which is owned by one of the major members of the Alliance of Healthcare Consumers, boasted last month to their investors that they secured for their own pharmacies
1 minute left.
precisely the type of model that SB 99 proposes, claiming that it was a victory for transparent drug pricing. AAHC's argument therefore appears to be that the fair payment model that SB 99 proposes is good for all if it's applied to the pharmacies of one of its members, but it will raise costs for all if it's applied to any of their competitors. One of those two things cannot be true. Further, the entire bill is aimed at reducing overall drug costs, including to employers, by eliminating the perverse incentives that the PBMs have built into their business models that are driving up costs. The PBMs would no longer be able to drive up the cost and then market themselves as a solution for high drug costs. They're leaving our patients scrambling. They're harming local access to the elderly by killing Alabama businesses. And the independent pharmacists of Alabama, these people with yellow buttons, are all humbly urging you to support SB 99 to save our livelihoods, access, and restore a free market. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harden. All right. Seeing no questions from Mr. Harden, next speaker.
John Barganier for opponent.
Welcome, Mr. Barganier.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity in this forum, very important issue before us. My name is Jonathan Barganier. I am the president of Manufacture Alabama. We're a trade association that exists to advocate on behalf of the interests of the manufacturing industry, manufacturing companies from North Alabama to Mobile and all points in between. Our industry represents more than a $40 billion annual economic impact of this state. More than 275,000 hardworking men and women are directly employed. Respectfully today, we stand here opposed to this bill before the body as well as the bill that was discussed earlier in the previous public hearing. You've heard from my colleagues from other business groups. I agree with what they said, so in the interest of time, I'll just cut to the chase. Our biggest concern is around the government-mandated dispensing fee. We know in our industry and in the real world that when costs go up to businesses, somebody's going to be left holding that bag. And in this case, the costs are going to end up at some point on the shoulders of businesses, employers, and employees. And that is our biggest concern at this time. So with that, I very much appreciate the opportunity to address this group, and best of luck as you work through this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barganier. Senator Roberts, you have a question?
Do you have a solution, Mr. Barganier?
I think you asked Mr. Stone that earlier.
I'm-
Yes, sir.
I wanted your
We'd be
thoughts.
willing to work on that, certainly, to get to a point. But in its current form, either of these bills, we have to be opposed to. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Senator Hatcher.
You know, and I agree with Senator Roberts because, but what I will say is this, is we cannot get to a programmatic solutions until we deal with the reason as to why we have the problem. Because a part of what, you know, we're hearing now, I'm sitting here looking at a prescription that I have, you know, that coupons have been applied to for eye medication for $216.49. And so we have a problem here. And I don't know that we are really addressing what that real problem is, because there are a whole lot of folk, you know, constituents of mine who are not going to be able to pay $216 for eye medication. So I'm with you if for people who are coming up as well, because we are listening to hear what is the solution to this problem, because it is a problem. And whether we're talking about, because I agree with my colleagues about, you know, our independent pharmacists and support of our independent pharmacists, and knowing that they are being crushed, knowing what we're dealing with at this moment, and the way in which, you know, our capitalistic society works in terms of this kind of problem. And so what we're charged with as you know, servant leaders is doing the best we can to provide, based on these conversations, a reasonable solution to a problem that's been going on for some time now. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about people's pocketbooks and what they're having to pay and who is going to be dispensing this medication. And I want to back up to quickly say that when we say that, I think I heard one of the speakers mention the additional $10 or something. You know, we are not living in normal times right now. And so to mince words around, you know, a dollar, you know, cost to that's attached here to independent pharmacies it's just getting in the weeds. It's a red herring. We need to be able to do exactly what you've been saying, is let us deal with the reason as to why it is we have the problem so we can get to a programmatic solution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Hatcher. Seeing no other questions, next speaker.
Proponent, Trent McLemore.
Welcome, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Trent McLemore. I'm the Director of Pharmacy for Star Discount Pharmacy, not an owner, and we operate 7 pharmacies in Madison County, as well as an additional pharmacy in Pulaski, Tennessee. I'm here to address 3 specific topics regarding SB 99. The first being that, you know, the simple fact that Tennessee has addressed this problem, 4 years ago, and I know Senators Butler and Beasley have tried, but it's just a shame that we're so far behind somebody that we usually compete with in sports so vehemently. You know, the solution in Tennessee, some may try to poke holes in it, but I can tell you standing here that it works. How do I know it works? Well, I mentioned that we have a pharmacy in Tennessee. Not only do we utilize it for the laws there for that pharmacy, but we now fill prescriptions for the other 7 pharmacies in Alabama, all above board, all approved by the board, for our Alabama patients. So since August, we've sent like $12 million across state lines, just because that's the only way we can keep the patients and not have to turn them away like others are having to do. But yeah, so we're making $13 a script up there. It's not like we're getting super rich, but at least it's a model where we don't have to abandon our patients. And so we're willing to do whatever it takes. So if you want to bring revenue back into the state and save local pharmacies, you need to vote for SB 99. Secondly, I wanted to recognize that the opposition seems to, I guess, think that gravity is reversed when you cross state lines in Alabama, or that math doesn't apply, or that, I guess, data doesn't commute whenever you drive past the Welcome to Alabama sign. we, along with my colleagues, we drafted this legislation specifically using Tennessee, West Virginia, Arkansas, other states that
1 minute left.
have proven with data that it works and you save money. The data shows that at worst, it's cost even. At best, you reduce your cost by 50%. Lastly, SB 99 detractors are either ignorant to what the Supreme Court is, or they don't want to observe the fact that Rutledge v. PCMA has already addressed that the state is who determines what PBMs pay pharmacies for commercial claims, not the federal government. As my wonderful wife would tell you, to our high school math students, show your work. I believe I have, and the numbers don't lie. I'm not here by choice, but out of necessity. I couldn't leave this in anybody else's hands. I couldn't trust that to them. I'm here for my family, my coworkers, and it's up to you guys to fix this. So if you want to save local pharmacies, please vote for SB 99. Do you have any questions?
Senator Roberts?
I'm fascinated by what you're talking about in Pulaski, Tennessee. Can you just take a moment and tell us the difference?
Absolutely.
So would address the business costs.
Sure. So we're paying a driver, a courier, to go to our Tennessee location every day. Where the prescriptions that are eligible to be reimbursed in Tennessee at cost plus $13, we have to transfer them up there, notify the patient, go up there and get the prescription, and then drive it back 50 miles. It's, again, we're not getting rich. I think we've saved maybe $50,000 off that $12 million, but it's a way where we can hopefully break even in the meantime, hopefully, until we get this passed. But in the meantime, we're able to keep serving our patients, because a lot of people out there, because of those gag clauses, they have to basically lie and say, I can't get that prescription, or I can't fill it, or we can't get it at the cost that your insurance pays, or some other semantics. So we're luckily able to say, hey, it'll take 2 days, but you don't have to go searching all over town for, Ozempic or whatever drug, So we send it up there, fill it, bring it back a couple days later. Again, we're getting paid exactly cost plus $13. That's it. Any other questions? Did I explain it enough? Or, I mean, we can talk afterwards if you like more details. Either way is fine.
I heard what you said. I'm still trying to understand.
Okay.
So the PBMs.
So the same so Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, if we fill that prescription in Alabama, they'll run to reimburse us by $150. The same day, same prescription in Tennessee, they will pay us our cost plus $13.16. Does that explain it? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
All right. Katie, if you call the next speaker.
Matt Barkley, opponent.
Welcome back, Mr. Barkley.
No, I thank you. Appreciate it. I obviously don't have to introduce myself. SB 99 is significantly more restrictive than 93 from our perspective in terms of plan design. Example, if I have a team member taking a maintenance medication, we can require them to use mail order. This one specifically says we can't. Or it also says that, essentially, if they do require a mail order, we order a 90-day fill in a local pharmacy, they don't have to do that. They can actually fill it in 30 days. So what it's saying is my team members would have to pay triple the copay on a 90-day fill because they fill it locally. The other item, and I do want to address the transparency issue. I have no problem with the transparency that they want to add. None. I think it's great to have a better conversation between your local pharmacies and yourself. Trust me, Ryan across the street at Abbeville Pharmacy, he and I talk frequently. I like having open conversations with him, but he also can't talk to me about certain things. So I think from a legislative standpoint, the transparency is huge, and I fully support that. But I can't take where we're going to increase cost to my plan. I talked about the specialty pharmacy program, and I'll give you my example. I take a shot every week, okay? If I filled it here in the States, it's $8,000. I can show you where I had that on my last plan. Under our current plan, I import that. The plan gets charged about 40% of what it would be in the US. And because our team members do that, I don't pay a copay. That's real world. I don't pay a copay. We suck that up as a company because of the amount of cost savings we have. The issue here is not to be solved at a state level. This is a federal issue. I hate to say it, the transparency and things like that we can solve, but overall cost issues, overall issues with the pharmacies, eating at one state at a time is not the solution. This is a federal issue, and I'm not trying to push it down the road, but the reality is we're not going to find a solution here that solves it for
1
the
minute
13
left.
states I operate in. That's the difference. What you do here impacts all of my locations because I can't offer separate plans by what state I'm in. So look, I have had multiple conversations with the APA, sat down with them in my office. We discussed it. They looked at 99 of my scripts that I filled. They had 2 that lost money. Overall, we filled 97 of the scripts at an average rate of reimbursement of about $13. So if you manage your plan, you do it responsibly, and no offense, I push back on my PBM, you can manage it and be successful across the board. Plus, we incent for them to use Mike's and use the local pharmacy. I don't like CVS any better than anybody else does. Trust me, I haven't filled a script in CVS in 6 years. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barkley. Senator Roberts, do you have a question for Mr. Barkley?
You hit on the federal issue, and I think several of us in this room talked about this several years ago when Senator Beasley and Butler had their legislation. The federal part of this is critical. I agree
real.
with you.
It's real.
We have an imminent situation going on here, so it's a pretty fine line to walk there. And I don't think any of us are trying to increase costs to business, to individuals. Senator Butler, what's your word for pharmacy benefit management? Pretty bad medicine. He's used that a lot.
They frustrate me as well.
No,
I
understand.
I have no argument with that. They frustrate me as well.
So you've talked with some of our federal guys, I feel sure.
We have, and we can, the problem is that I just haven't seen anybody bring up legislation that is a real solution to this. I mean, the fact that I'm importing drugs from Canada should tell you something.
No,
I mean, that should tell you it's the issue. And we do it. So
I've sat with legislators from other states. They do the same thing. You've had entire state networks go to where they're bringing them in from Canada as well.
And the reality is it's the only way I have to control costs. Otherwise, it gets to a point where my team members just can't afford it. I mean, I can't provide them at a reasonable cost. So that's my concern. I have to support those 1,900 team members and make sure that it's affordable for them.
Understand. Thank you for being here today, sir.
Senator Smithman, do you have a question or comment?
I have a question as well.
Mr. Barkley, you're getting your steps in today.
I'm trying to get away. Okay.
When did we start having these pharmacy benefit managers? How long that's been in existence?
Well, I've been at it for 25 years in HR, and they've been around for that long.
Okay.
So I'm not an young guy anymore. So
okay. Well, are you aware, with you being around that long with it and speaking on this topic as a speaker, to give us, I will phrase it this way, your expertise in this area, what kind of regulations do we have now on these pharmacy benefit managers in statute? What are we doing from our standpoint to make sure that there is certain guidelines that they have to follow? Can you tell me?
they have very limited, to be very honest with you. They have very limited. I mean, these are the middlemen.
Yeah.
So your pharmacy's gonna, and it's all based on their size. And the reality is, as these smaller ones are getting bought up, they're getting more buying power. Those PBMs continue to wield a lot of power over the pharmacists, whether it's CVS or our local pharmacies. The PBMs are the problem.
I
They really
ask
are.
you that. Why are they necessary? I mean, why is it necessary to have the manufacturers, the pharmacy, and somebody in the middle who gonna stack on some more money so they can? I'm not for or against. I'm just posing what it is. Is that why we got to have somebody in there throwing some more money on there for them to do what I think, I'm not in that business. I think a pharmacist can look at their supplies and order straight from the factory, and if they want generic or they want the other, and establish demand and supply. You know, we're in a capitalist society. I know you know that. So demand and supply will balance that off. But if we got somebody here who putting another mechanism in it and applying some other mechanism other than the basic capitalistic society of demand and supply, then I agree that that's a problem there when it comes to cost. Because that middle person can set the cost. They can be a roadblock. They can do a whole lot of other things that's, I don't see the necessity of that. And so I'm being very frank with you on it. You know, we kind of dancing around the problem. You know, I'm just sitting there listening, and we just dancing around, and I guess because we don't step on nobody's toes or whatever. But the reality of it is that it's too much flexibility with these people right here. That it's unpredictable for these people here, and probably unpredictable for the people right here.
Yeah.
So I think some kind of structure from us need to be put here, or some kind of guidelines or some kind of limitations of what can happen to these people back over here by these people, because they're not a pharmacist and they're not a manufacturer. They just somebody in the middle who controlling cost. That's affecting people past the pharmacists down here. So I know if some folks in here kind of hesitant to even sit up here to say what I'm saying, but it is what it is. If we're gonna be serious about trying to make sure folk can afford medicine, then that's the case. Because he is absolutely right what he's saying. Lord have mercy, the cost of medicine now is unreal for people. And when you got people got to decide whether or not they're going to pay their rent, they're going to eat, or they're going to buy medicine. That's exactly the way it goes. We got people now that and it ain't all folks just on fixed income. Folks are folks who making big money, who got to pay out big money, who got big medical problems, who so I'm saying to even us in this body, when we tackle these things, we got to deal with all these aspects, because I'm not, it's a capitalist society. I'm not against folk making money. But my God, we're in one of the richest countries in the world. And our medicine costs and all that stuff is through the roof. You can go to plenty of these countries that is very reasonable. That's why folk go to Mexico, go all these places to get medical stuff, because the cost over here is so ridiculously high. And it coming from that middle section that's controlling, that's intentionally or unintentionally manipulating the law of demand and supply.
They're managing the distribution channel.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
They're managing the distribution channel, and the reality is, and that's why I'm challenged by it, because I go, we need a fix across the board, and I wish I had an answer, because the reality is I've managed plans where you've had 50, if I look at my total spend on the plan, 54% of it is made up of script costs. And you can get that, especially when you get to workforce as they age and things like that. So if you can imagine, it costs me as much to supply scripts as it does to go to supply your health care. That's a problem. And I wish I had a solution for you, Senator. I don't. And I wish I was that smart, because I wouldn't be standing here then, right? I'd be doing something else. But the reality is PBMs are that roadblock for all of us. I fight them whenever I do my annual renewals for what I get back and what I can do and rates and things like that. I have the same fight. And I hear what they're saying on their side too. They're doing the same fight. But I've also got to represent my 1,900 team members, that I'm concerned about them being able to afford health care. Afford that the prescription coverage. That's what concerns me.
And I follow up your concern, and I'll be doing, Mr. Chairman, on that aspect of it, because guess what? Those people who we help and do everything, they going to jack the price up, and they send it to us to appropriate more in the general fund for those benefits that we got because they done jacked the prices. I mean, now we can't help people. We can't even, you know, provide additional service. You know, sometime when you said Medicaid expansion, folks tighten up. So I ain't gonna say that. I'm gonna say that we can't expand services at all, any kind of services, because we so busy trying to raise up money for insurance costs. It's gone up and everything because, and I understand them because their cost and the services of cost has gone up, and the cost of medicines has gone up here. So I'm in conclusion, I'm just gonna say that, you know, I'm talking to everybody, but colleagues as well. I'm not interested in no Band-Aids. If we gonna fix it, let's fix it. I don't care, you know, if you can't satisfy everybody.
Nope, I know.
So we're going to have to make a choice. We're going to satisfy folks making money, or we're going to satisfy the consumer. That's what we got to do. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Barkley. You're free to go now. We've had a special request by Senator Beasley. Wanted to address did you still want to address this, Senator Beasley? Yes, I'm ready for you. And before our last two speakers. Yes, ma'am. You wanted more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the definition of a pharmacy benefit manager needs to be explained to the members of the committee. I think most of the folks behind me already know. They really came into being in about 1984. And that's Blue Cross Blue Shield went to Paul Hubbard and PHIP and Mr. Fred Ziegler at State Employees and says, I think I have an idea that we can help control your cost of prescription drugs if we form a network of the pharmacists in Alabama. So a notice was sent out to the drugstores in Alabama, the opportunity to participate. And they set the guidelines and all the rules. And all the drugstores signed up. And the reimbursement at that time was fair to the drugstores. The cost of drugs in 1984 were very, very small compared to 2025. I really believe pharmaceutical card systems got into being out in Arizona in the early 80s. And they were trying to create a benefit for employees of the banks. They went to the banks and said, if you accept our plan and have your members have a PCS card, then they could go to the drugstore and get a discount. Well, we all want fairness. We want consumers to get a fair shake, but the drugstore owners also have to have a fair shake. Well, Caremark bought PCS a long time ago. Do you know that when the PBM sets the formulary, they set the price of what they pay the drugstore? Members of the committee, the drugstore has overhead costs just like every business in Alabama. The PBM never considers the overhead costs that a drugstore goes through every day. A lady, I think, in Randolph County gave a pretty good explanation the other day of all the costs that are incurred to the drugstore when they fill a prescription. First thing, you got to have a container to put the medicine in. You got to have a label. You got to have a computer in order to send the claims to the PBMs. All of those costs, you know, you got to have payroll. You got to have a pharmacist. By law, you can't fill a prescription unless the pharmacist fills it. Pharmacist has to be paid. You have to have insurance. You got to have rent for your building. All of those are factors, overhead costs. It is not a consideration to the pharmacy benefit managers. And when it all started out, drugs in 1984 were very inexpensive compared to today. And the formula that Dr. Paul Hubbard and Fred Ziegler agreed with Blue Cross was to pay the pharmacists full wholesale cost for a brand name drug. They paid them a fee of $3.45, and the copay for the for the member of those two organizations was $5. If it was a generic drug, it paid the pharmacist $4 for a month's supply. That was both ways. And the copay was $2. Well, the PBM industry began to grow. And they go into the employer groups of Alabama and say, you let us manage your pharmacy benefit, we'll save you money. Well, members of the committee, they ain't saved them a dime. Their costs continue to rise. And you got all these PBMs out there that are making tons of money. But they control how the prescription is. That's how I feel. But they control what the doctors can prescribe. And then you think about all the television advertisements on all these expensive drugs, and they are wonderful drugs. They save lives. But you know, the United States and New Zealand are the only two countries in the world that allow direct advertising of pharmaceuticals to the public. That has caused a huge increase in the cost of drugs. I believe if these bills are passed, I'm a former president of APA. Most of the members of the independent crowd on 99 are members of APA. We're just trying to craft a piece of legislation where the drugstore industry can survive. And they're falling off the wayside. We're losing about a drugstore per week in Alabama. And we can't continue to do that because the public needs to have that access of a pharmacist. Pharmacist is kind of like the gatekeeper. You know, we protect the consumer and we have protected the medical association. If there's, you know, a contraindication of a drug that's been prescribed, the pharmacist catches it. They've never been paid for it. It's just a service the pharmacist provides. I think we've been talking about this since 1999 when I first got in the legislature. And here we are at 2025 and hadn't passed any legislation to protect the retail drugstore industry in Alabama and protect the consumers of Alabama. I think we have the opportunity to do something this session to protect both of those entities.
Thank you, Senator Beasley. We're running up. I want to get to those two final speakers.
Okay, if anybody has a question, I'll be glad to try to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your knowledge. Next speaker.
Proponent, Pat McWhorter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. You know I'm a hired hand, but I stand here before you on behalf of Walmart Stores Incorporated, one of the largest employers, private employers in Alabama, as well as the Alabama Grocers Association, who represent about 1,000 supermarkets, also Publix Corporation, which has 90 stores in Alabama, all 150 or 145 to 150 stores of Walmart retail stores have pharmacies in them. We're in most counties, sadly not all, but Publix, all of the Publix stores have pharmacies. And the independent grocer is our backbone, and many of them, as a lot of you know, partner with independent pharmacies to provide the service that's needed by our customers. That's what we're all about, is bringing to them the fresh foods, the good prices, whatever it takes to supply, to serve those counties, every county in the state. We are in favor of PBM reform. We trust the judgment of this committee and this body to do what you think is best. We do think 99's tougher. It's got more in it. One thing that is attractive to our larger members is that the person who buys the policy will get the rebates instead of the insurance companies and the PBMs and those folks now, because a few of ours are self-insured. Most purchase insurance just like your businesses do. Senator Hatcher, I was on my way back from seeing my grandbaby last summer and stopped in Istanbul. One of my diabetes medicines that costs here $1,000 a month. You know how much I bought it for in Istanbul? $20 a month.
That's what I'm talking about.
$20 a month. So the root of the problem, to get to Senator Smitherman's point, is not here. Really, the problem's in Washington. Really, the problem is
1 minute left.
that the National Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers Association spent somewhere close to $150 million lobbying Congress to make sure that they don't do stuff like this. So the problem we've got here is the common good of the people of Alabama. We've got a healthcare crisis. Closed another ER in a rural county this week, right? We've got pharmacies closing everywhere. We've got businesses that are answerable to stockholders that at some point are going to say, you're not making any money in pharmacy in Alabama, you're going to have to quit doing it. We don't control that. You control the playing field. You control leveling the playing field. And that's what we don't have right now. That's what we've got to have. My members do not own a PBM. They compete with drugstores that do own PBMs. That's not a level playing field for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. All right, next up.
We have Ted Hosp, opponent.
Welcome, Mr.
Morning.
Foss.
Thank you, and I appreciate the committee's patience. I know this has been a long hearing. I want to start by saying, obviously, Ted Hospital, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, we proudly serve, along with our partner Prime Therapeutics, about 20% of the population of Alabama for their pharmacy benefits. About 1.1 million of our neighbors, that's about 33% of the commercial market, not the 90 to 99% that you often hear from folks. We're only really about 33% of the commercial market. In administering those benefits, though, the complaint we hear most often from pharmacists is that they must at times dispense drugs for less than they are reimbursed. Not all prescriptions, not all the time, but some. Generally speaking, the number we hear is somewhere in the 10 to 15% range of the prescriptions that are dispensed are underwater. You've heard that term earlier. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 90%, it'll vary from pharmacy to pharmacy, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 90% of the prescriptions are filled above that cost with some sort of margin. Now, let's put aside for the fact that the problem here is just as much the artificially inflated cost, acquisition cost, that those pharmacies are forced to pay as the drug goes from the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the buying group to the PSAO, finally to the pharmacy. There's a lot of middlemen on both sides
That's what I'm talking about.
of this equation, not just on the payer side. So putting aside for a second those inflated costs, I urge the committee to focus on that 10 to 15% of the prescriptions that pharmacists are now having to fill at a cost, at a reimbursement that is lower than their cost. Because I'm hopeful that that is a place where we can find some common ground. Instead, though, what we have with Senate Bill 93 and Senate Bill 99 is a legislatively imposed fee on every prescription filled in Alabama that will radically increase costs to our employers and their employees. Again, I think that common ground can be found. We agree with the pharmacies that the number and the level of the fees that are imposed on them by PBMs is excessive and that they need relief. We agree with the pharmacies that the laws you have passed, there's a list in your packet, the laws you have passed most recently in 2021 regarding steering and paying PBM-affiliated pharmacies more, those need to be enforced. We agree with the pharmacies that they should not have to dispense medicines at a reimbursement rate that's lower than their acquisition cost. There are ways to fix these problems and help make sure that pharmacies are open and available for the people that they serve. But
Your time is up. Thank you.
I have a question.
Senator Stutz. Oh, we have a question?
When he can go
Okay.
first.
Senator Stutz wanted to address.
I can go after. Well, I really the question is for him.
Oh, you have a question, Senator Smithman?
And the reason I'm saying this is because it's germane to the general subject, although I know it's maybe a little off on these two bills. And you don't even have to answer me now. I'll take the answer after we get through. But why, when state employees retire, then Blue Cross kick them out the door? I mean, because that's what happens. I mean, they cannot keep their policy. They can't even buy it themselves. They can't do anything. So once they retire, that's the most precious folk we got, retired folks. And we don't telling them that, you got to hit the road, Jack. And that's what y'all saying to them. And I ain't know that until the last year. Out of all the time I've been there, that's what's been happening to them. So, I mean, why?
Well,
Why?
respectfully, sir, that's not a decision that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama makes. The retiree benefits are handled and managed by a company other than Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama. That's done through a bidding process that PHIP administers. We would love to be administering those benefits, and we hope again someday to win the bid and be doing that again.
Okay. You got me straight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. Senator Stutz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I know we've gone long. I'll be very brief. Senator Smitherman, I'm glad you're already sitting down. Before I tell you this, I agree with everything you said.
That's why I'm a co-sponsor on your bill.
So, but I just want to clear up a few things, and hate that Senator Elliott wasn't here. He asked about the cost. I want to clear up the 2 points of where the money is saved. Number one, Senate Bill 99 mandates that, well, let me back up to you. What happens now is the PBM negotiates with a name brand drug supplier. They get a rebate to put that name brand drug on their formulary, and then even if there's a more economical generic equivalent available in the market, you can't get it because it's not on your formulary. And so that drives the cost up. Number two, Senate Bill 99 mandates that any rebate goes back to the employer. So these employers that are worried about their costs going up, instead of the PBM keeping all the rebate, Senate Bill 99 mandates that it goes back to the employer that is paying for the premiums. So that is why, those are the two reasons that it's going to drive costs down instead of driving costs up. So the things you've heard about driving costs up are absolutely false. If you look at the data from other states, West Virginia has had this in place for 5 years with state expenditures of money for state employees, their Medicaid, state expenditure of money. West Virginia estimates they're saving $50 million a year of state dollars. Kentucky's estimate is $100 million a year that they're saving since they instituted a bill almost exactly like Senate Bill 99. So, those are the facts. I understand that drug costs have gone up. Inflation is a problem for all of us. Yogi Berra said a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. And I understand all that. But if you look at the cost of drugs, 20 years ago, the cost of drugs as a percentage of the healthcare dollar was in low single digits. This past year, it was just over 22% of the healthcare dollar. So if you look at what's driving up healthcare costs for employers, for insurance plans, all the things, the prescription drug costs are a major, major part of that. Doctors get about 11 cents on the dollar of the healthcare dollar. So the providers are not what's driving up the cost, it's the prescription drug costs that are driving it up. And Senate Bill 99 will do that. So I know we've run over time. I'll be glad to answer any other specific questions, but my request to you all is to let's vote Senate Bill 99 out of this committee next week when we meet. Let's get it on the Senate floor and pass it, and it's going to help consumers, employers, and pharmacists all across this state. So I appreciate your attention. I know the committee's gone long. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your indulging all these speakers. Thank you very much.
Senator
Any
Scott.
questions?
Senator Jones wanted to make.
I just got one brief comment. I feel like one of the big differences in these two bills got missed today. Nobody talked about it. I just want to mention it, okay? Our bill uses the Alabama average cost plus the dispensing fee, which is exactly what Medicaid pays these pharmacies in the state of Alabama. The average Alabama cost plus 1064. SB 99 uses the national average plus the 1064 plus 2% or $25. okay? So you got Alabama cost on 93, you got national cost on 99. Both of them have the Medicaid rate, but 99 has an additional 2% or $25. And the last thing I'll mention is our bill was also written by independent pharmacies, and I want to make that very clear. Thank you.
Senator Smithman.
I just want you to, if you write that down, when we meet next week, I'm moving for favor report on 99 already right now. And yes, Senator, you laid the hay where the goat and the cow and whoever else eat hay can get it. You just laid it right out there. And if we ain't gonna follow what you're doing right then, I ain't for patching. I'm just telling everybody now, if that you are saying, well, we got to go and handle the problem.
Absolutely.
And I'm just telling you, that's it. This one addressing, I'm just saying, I'm through much time. One addressing looking good, we did something is unacceptable. We got to do what you were just saying, the mechanism that will drive these prices down and that will keep these prices down. So I just wanted to say that you know, I don't know what your position going to be when we get to the floor, but all I want you to know, let me know, and I'm ready to go. Thank you very much.
That's up to us. We control the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Coleman.
Thank you. I know that the time is spent, and thank you for answering the question. My question was going to be, what is the major difference between the two bills? But now my question to the two sponsors. Where are we at as far as, or are we anywhere closer to any type of negotiated bill? Are we any closer to where you all can come together to come up with one bill?
Senator Jones, you want to respond to that?
I'd just say that our side has, I know Bobby Giles with the Pharmacy Association in Alabama has met with folks on the other side. We continue to and try to find a middle ground. As I said at the very beginning, my goal is to have the strongest bill possible that can actually pass and get to the governor's desk.
I would say the same thing. We have tried to arrive at it, and the issue of said this bill, that Senate Bill 99 can't pass, that's up to us. We control what bills pass. And to pass a bill that's not as effective because we think it'll pass, and the independent pharmacists that I have worked with say, we've got to pass something strong that's going to fix it. We've been talking about this for years. The situation is getting worse every year, and we can all agree. When I asked Bobby Giles, what do you object to in our bill? And he said nothing. And so let's get together and pass 99.
All right.
Simple.
Thank you, Senators,
Thank you.
and thank you for all your attentive.